פרק שני, second chapter. משנה א', first משנה. ביאור משנה א'. משנתנו ממשיכה בעניין עדי החודש ונאמנותם. We're going to continue with who is trustworthy to be a witness. So we remember in the previous Mishnahs that we read, we learned who is not trustworthy. There's a lot of guys who don't have respect for money, they don't have respect to think. Gamblers, we don't trust them. And then it's going to see it became even worse. What does it mean? Im ein makirim oto, if we don't know, not in the beginning, any guy who was not a gambler, was not something there, we trusted. Then there was a new rule. If I don't know you, I don't take your testimony. In the beginning, as long as I don't know you're a gambler, I don't know, you're a Jew, you're coming, I'm not supposed to ask you a question, I'll take you. If I know you're a gambler, I can't take your testimony. So then it becomes like this. Im ein makirim oto, if I don't know you, I don't know who you are, maybe you're a gambler, but you can't just excuse if anybody can, maybe you're a murderer, what do you mean? It doesn't make sense. So like this, im ein makirim oto, if they didn't recognize him, they didn't know him, אם אין בית הדין מכירים את העד שבא להעיד על ראיית הלבנה בחידושה, if they don't know him, the witness that is going to come, ואינם יודעים אם נאמן הוא, they don't know if he's trustworthy or not, ואפשר לסמוך על עדותו, that you can trust his witnessing. So what do? We're going to see later on why it was happening. משלחים אחר עמו להעמידו. So the people in the village, in the court, says, look, they know these two guys. Since they know these two guys are kosher, we're going to send these two guys with him to be witnesses that this guy is kosher. He's not a gambler, he's not a murderer, he's a good guy. So he needs to bring...
Now he needs another guy with him.
He needs two more guys, not just one more guy.
Two more?
Yeah, two witnesses. One witness is not enough. Yeah, he needs two witnesses. משלחים עמו. אחר עמו להעידו. בית דין שבעירו, המכירים אותו, it says over here one. Interesting. You might be right. משלחים עמו אחר להעיד עליו בפני בית דין המקדשים את החודש. They send with him, we'll see soon. Usually witness one is not enough. So we'll see what happens. מקדשים את החודש. So they send a guy with him to sanctify the moon. שאדם נאמן הוא, to testify that he is trustworthy. בגמרא מבואר, the Gemara explained, משלחים אחר, היינו זוג אחר של הדין. The Gemara explained, one is not enough for testimony, you have to send two. אבל עד אחד אינו נאמן, because if you only send one with him, there's no testimony of one guy. ואף לעדות החודש צריך שתי עדים. Even for the testimony of the month, you need two witnesses. There are some cases you don't need two witnesses, but for the month you do. כמו ששנינו לעיל, like we explained before. ומכאן מפרשים בגמרא, גם מה ששנינו, אם אין מכירים אותו, if they don't recognize him, if they don't know him, היינו את זוג העדים. So you send the pair. אבל ראש המפרשים אינם מדייקים בזה, but most of the commentaries don't go exact in this, ומפרשים אותו את העד. They say only one witness is enough. כלומר שבית הדין אינם מקבלים עדות החודש, אלא משני עדים שמכירים אותם שהם נאמנים. So it says, עד means witness, but witness always means two, so that's the way you learn it. כמבוארתם בספר של משנתנו. And we're going to learn the reason for it in the end of this Mishnah. Why would they need to do witnesses? Why? Trust the guy, what's the problem? ואם בית הדין אינם מכירים אחד מהם, and if the court does not know one of them, משלחים עמו שני עדים לעידו. So you send two other witnesses to say that he's a kosher guy. כך אמרו בגמרא, this is what they said in the Gemara, שכשם שעדי החודש מחללים את השבת, you should know. Just like the witnesses of the moon, they are allowed to break Shabbat, כפי ששנינו בפרק קודם, just like we said in the previous chapter. כך אותם עדים נשלחים להעיד על מהימנותם של עדי החודש. Also these guys, the witnesses, are allowed to break Shabbat. מחללים את השבת. והולכים עמהם לבית הדין, and they walk with them to the court. ואפילו לא היה אלא אחד המכירם. Even if there was only one who knew them. הרי הוא מחלל את השבת והולך לעידם. He should go and be a witness that they got good characters. Why just one? One is not enough. So he says, one is enough. What do you mean enough? Enough for what? You don't know. Maybe somebody else in Yerushalayim knows him. And he says, yeah, I know him, he's a Zeus, and then you find another one. So even if you know that just by yourself is not good enough, you still have to go with him. You know? שמא יימצא שם עוד אחד המכירם ויצטרף עמו. Because maybe, in other words, he says, why am I Mechal Shabbos? Not enough in testimony itself. They say, you have to go with him. Why? Because maybe in Yerushalayim there's somebody else who knows him and you and the other guy are going to be together. Just because of that maybe, go. Okay. So now he's going to explain what used to happen. Barishona, in the beginning, היו מקבלים עדות החודש מכל אדם. They used to receive this testimony from every person. They trusted everybody. משנתנו באה כאן לתת טעם. Mishnah is going to come and tell us the reason why they stopped trusting people. משום מה צריכים בית הדין להכיר את כל אחד מעדי החודש. It says, why do you need to trust him? Why do you need to know him? שאומנם בראשונה היו מקבלים עדות החודש מכל אדם ישראל, because in the beginning, any Jew who used to come up, just like over here in Shul, any Jew who comes to Shul says, I'm Jewish, yeah? You accept. You don't have to check on him. You don't check. You accept his Jewishness. He gets an aliyah. שכל אחד מישראל בחזקת כשר. Every Jew has got a chazaka. He's a kosher Jew. עד שיוודע לך שהוא פסול. Once you start to have doubts, you say, oh, you heard that, his great mother converted conservative. Okay, now you started to ask questions. but what happened? משקלקלו המינים, when the apikosim, the people who went against Judaism, those cults, started to corrupt the system. They started to go against the system. היינו הצדוקים והבייתוסים, these two cults of צדוקים and בייתוסים, שסחרו עדי שקר. They started to pay people, because they were fighting on the Rosh Hashanah, they started to pay people to say, hey, go say you said it, or go say you didn't see it, whatever it is. להטעות את בית הדין, they started hiring people, so that the sages in Yerushalayim are going to make a mistake. התקינו שלא יהיו מקבלים עדות החודש. That's when they made this decree, that if I don't know who you are, I'm not going to accept your testimony. אלא מן המכירים, only from the person who I know. מעידים שבית הדין מכירים אותם כממנים. And if you don't know you, bring witnesses that you're kosher. If you're not going to bring me witnesses that I trust them, that's it. I'm not going to take your testimony. Let's learn a little bit about the tzdukim and baitusim. הצדוקים והבייתוסים, the tzdukim and baitusim, היו אלה שתי כתות בימי הבית השני. There were two Jewish cults in the time of the Second Temple. שכפרו בתורה שבעל פה. They went against the oral Torah. They didn't accept the oral Torah. והיו מפרשים את התורה שבכתב דברים ככתבם. And they explained, they only accepted the Torah. So when it says eye for an eye, it means eye for an eye, and so on and so forth. Specifically, exactly what it says in the Torah. היינו, which means, כמשמעם המילולי. Exactly what it says, that's what it took it. Without the explanation of Moshe. אחד הדברים שהתנגדו בו לחכמים, היה בעניין ספירת העומר. One of the things that they went against the sages was the counting of the Omer. שהואיל וכתוב, when it comes to the counting of the Omer וכתוב, וספרתם לכם ממחרת השבת. It says you should count to you from the day after Shabbat. So if Pesach
is on Sunday,
they will wait until Shabbat to Sfirat Omer.
Like 7 days.
Okay, like 5 days later, whatever it is. In other words, they will wait for זהו. היו אומרים, אין קצירת העומר במוצאי יום טוב הראשון של פסח. It says, you don't start the counting of the Omer when Pesach is over, כמו שפירשו חכמים. In other words, מחרת השבת for the חכמים, Shabbat means Pesach.
Shabbat means Shvita.
Yeah, Shabbat means Pesach. For them, Shabbat means Shabbat. It says Shabbat, it doesn't say Pesach. שפירשו חכמים על פי הקבלה, the חכמים received it from father to son, from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, אלא במוצאי שבת הראשונה שלאחר יום טוב הראשון של הפסח. They would establish it on the first Shabbat of the first after Pesach. כמשמעו של הכתוב ממחרת השבת. Just like we learned now that it says after Shabbat. ולשיטתם זו, and according to this counting, חל תמיד חג השבועות להיות ביום ראשון בשבוע. So because of that, It's got always, Shavuot will always fall on the Sunday, because for 50 days from that, 49 days, 7 weeks. 7 weeks, always be on a Sunday. משום כך מעוניינים היו להטעות את החכמים. That's why they were in a fight with the sages. It says, we're right. It's going to be, so they was all the time trying to manipulate the system. בקביעת החודש, in the month, and usually in the other month they didn't care so much because it's not relevant because they agreed. But which month they really were fighting with us? On the month of Nisan. ובמיוחד בחודש ניסן, in the month of Nisan. כי רוצים היו שיתקדש חודש ניסן בשבת. Because they wanted them, if they would able to push Nisan to Shabbos, then it's going to fall like their system. Yeah, then it's going to be Machat Shabbat. Then it fits them. So they would always try, if they could, to manipulate it to fall on Shabbat. So if the sages would see the moon and it's on a Friday, they would say, no. They grab the guy, he says, don't go to Yerushalayim. We want that you go to Yerushalayim so that the sages will not know, and then they will sanctify Shabbat, and that's good for us then. כדי שיחול יום ראשון של פסח בשבת. ותהיה הנפת העומר מאחת השבת כרבשם. They always wanted Pesach to fall on Shabbat, so that ספירת העומר will always be on a Sunday. ויחול חג השבועות ביום ראשון כפי שיטתם. Okay. וכן מובא בברייתא בגמרא, and this is also brought in the ברייתא, מה קלקלו הבייתוסים? It says they corrupted the whole system. פעם אחת ביקשו הבייתוסים להטעות את החכמים. It says there was one case that they wanted to make the sages make a mistake. ומפרש רש"י, and Rashi explained, שאירע יום 30 של אדר, that the 30th day of אדר, בשבת. It happened on Shabbat. ולא נראה ירח בזמנו. And the moon wasn't in its time. והבייתוסים מתאווים שיהיה יום ראשון של פסח בשבת. They wanted to be on that day. כמו שכבר ביארנו לעיל, like we explained. So what did they do? שכרו שני בני אדם, so they paid 2 guys, ב-400 זוז, they paid them 400 זוז, אחד משלנו שלא הכיריהו, ואחד משלהם. One from us, and in other words, one that did not recognize, and one from them. שלהם העיד עדותו ויצא, theirs stayed the testimony and he left. שלנו אמרו לו, and us, they thought to him, אמרו, כיצד ראית את הלבנה? They said, how did you see the moon? אמר להם, עולה הייתי במעלה אדומים. He says, I went up in a place called מעלה אדומים, וראיתיו שהוא רבוץ בין שני סלעים, and I see him right between these 2 rocks. ראשו דומה לעגל. The head was like circular, אוזניו דומות לגדי, his ears are similar to a goat, קרניו דומות לצבי, and the head is similar to a ram, וזנבו מונח לו בין ירחותיו, and the tail is between his legs. והצצתי בו, I looked at him, ונרתלתי ונפלתי לאחוריי. I was so scared I fell backwards. ואם אין אתם מאמינים לי, and if you guys don't believe me, הרי 200 זוז צרורים לי בסדני. He was one of the guys of ours. Yeah, he says, if you don't believe it, this is actually what I saw. Yeah, I also have 2,000 zuz right over here. you can make it. Yeah, אמרו לו, and they said to him, מי הזקיחך לכך? He says, who put you up to it? Who put you up to it? אמר להם, he says, I said to them, שמעתי שביקשו בייתוסים להטעות את חכמים. It says, I heard of the plot that they wanted to trick you. אמרתי אלך ואודיע להם. It says, I'm going to go and I will tell them, שמא יבואו בני אדם שאינם מוגנים ויטעו את החכמים. It says, maybe there are going to be people who's going to come that are not honest, and they're going to tell the sages. אמרו לו, 200 זוז נותנים לך במתנה. It says, those 200 זוז, it's a present for you. ואסורך אימתך על העמוד. And the guy who rented you out, who paid you, we're going to stretch him on the pillar. You stretch the pillar, then you give lashes. That's what we're going to give him. באותה שעה, so from that day onwards, the sages said, oh, we have a problem over here. That's it. שלא יהיו מקבלים אלא מן המכירים. From that point onward, it says, we're only going to accept people who we recognize.
Lucky was a משת"פ.
Yeah.
משתף פעולה.
Uh-huh.